Never Going to Sleep. Chapter 1. The night was long. I thought I'd change my work outfit into my normal clothes. I took the all-night shift for my friend Allison since she had to babysit her baby brother. Gazing out the window, the streets were flooded with the obnoxious rain beating down on them, and not to mention how deserted they were from human life. I sighed. My car broke down a few weeks ago, and I had absolutely no money to repair it. This meant I had to walk 2 miles back home in the rain and all alone. My phone rang in my pocket. Locking the door, I took my phone and saw it was Allison calling. "Hello," I answered, trying to talk louder than the rain's loud thrashing upon the store. "Oh my gosh, Leah, please don't tell me you're still at work," I heard her little brother screaming in the background. "Sorry to say I am," I replied, staring out the window, hoping the rain would ease up. "I'm so sorry, Leah. I would come and drive you, but hey, it's all right. I've done my fair share of walking in rain as a kid, and this isn't bad. Call me once you get home, you hear me? I will be waiting." "All right, I will," I said, rolling my eyes. "Good." There was a sound of glass breaking in the background. "Alex!" she shrieked. "Sorry, got to go. Remember to call me." Yeah, I said, hanging up, putting my jacket on and putting the hood over my head. I quickly ran to the back door and walked out in the bitter rain, running as fast as I could, yet trying not to slip while doing so, though I could hardly see 5 feet in front of me from the rain. I managed to wander down the street without hitting into anything. The night seemed to be lapping all the light from the city. It was dreadfully dark. My heart sunk when I felt a kind of hollowness on my side. Reaching down, I patted my pocket to discover my phone was gone. Dang it, I thought, searching the ground. This was the last thing I needed right now. Retracing my steps, I carefully looked at the floor, praying I would find it, when I felt someone thrown at me and striking my back. I looked down to see it was my phone. Turning around, I gasped, feeling all the air being sucked out of my lungs. Not even 3 feet away was a man with a large grin as if it had been cut into his face. It looked unreal. His eyelids were completely burned, which made the appearance of his dark eyes bring more uneasiness into his gaze. His skin was as pale as paper, as his hair looked like a false color of black. It certainly wasn't always that color anyways. "Leah," he said in a deep voice. He pulled out a knife out of his pocket. He seemed to smile even wider. I managed to find my voice and scream. He lunged at me with the knife, making me fall straight to the ground. Sitting on top of me in the rain, he raised his knife in the air. "Leah," he said again, this time more amused, "go to sleep." My heart sunk at those 3 words. I remembered reports in the paper about a killer who was named Jeff, who said that all his victims before he killed them. Luckily, a few survivors were able to fight him off. As the police came, he flees the scene. I was so infatuated with his story in the paper, me and Allison did a school report on him in 5th grade. It was supposed to be a Halloween thriller. Instead, it sent us a day's worth of detention for unnecessary horror and scaring children. "Please don't," I begged as he flung the knife down. I swiftly reached my hand to push it from hitting my neck. Instantly, it went right into my shoulder, making me screech in pain. "No," he hissed, pulling his knife out of me. "Can't you see? I'm helping you. You don't deserve to live." He raised his knife again. "Now go to sleep." Then we heard indistinctive sirens getting louder and louder. It was the police. Someone must have heard me screaming. Quickly, he got off of me and stared at me. "I'm not done yet," he said before running into the night's dark passage. Never Going to Sleep. Jeff the Killer Romance, Chapter 2. Everything was blurry. I felt my body cold and wet. I heard faint voices all around me. "Has she opened her eyes yet?" one of the voices asked. It sounded strangely familiar. "No, not yet," someone else replied. "Oh, this is my fault. If only I would have drove her home," the other said. Slowly I opened my eyes and peered around. I saw my mother, father, and Allison surrounding me. "What?" I mumbled, trying to focus on everything. Leah! Allison shrieked, grabbing my hand. Tears began to fall down her face. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. Please give me, please give me another chance. I will never leave you alone again. My mother grabbed my other hand. Honey, how are you feeling? She asked, though you could tell she had her fair share of crying. My shoulder hurts, I complained, giving a weak smile. What happened? The police found you lying on the road. You lost way too much blood in your shoulder and blacked out. My dad said with his comforting voice, but you are fine now. My mom frowned. Leah, do you know who did this to you? She asked. Of course I knew. Jeff, the man I never believed would actually try and hurt me. Honestly, I didn't even believe he was real. The description of him in the paper was so vividly detailed and alarming. I just thought he was another story passed around as gossip, and somehow ended up in the paper. Jeff did it, I said, trying to sound as calm as possible. Jeff? Who's Jeff? My dad asked impatiently. He probably thought it was an old boyfriend of mine. Jeff the killer. He tried to kill me. Tears fell down my face. I was unable to control them. He was coming for me again. He said so. Allison looked me in the eye. You're playing with us, aren't you? No, Allie, I know it was him. Leah, there is no Jeff the killer. Your mind is playing tricks on you. The police have no evidence of what the victim said was true, and it could be just another lie. Remember, we made fun of his story. I nodded my head. Allison and I did make fun of his article, and maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Relief washed over me. Maybe I was just so scared I pictured whoever stabbed me to look like him. My mind usually does weird things like that when I'm afraid. The doctor came in once he saw that I was awake and smiled. Hello, Miss Clyde. I see you're awake. He walked over and examined my shoulder. The bleeding has stopped, he said, patting my head. My mother sighed in relief. It's about time, she said, pulling her hair back. The doctor gave me a serious look. There are some people who would like a word with you about the man who did this. He looked over at my parents as if he was asking for their approval. They nodded. Leaving the room, he came back with two men following him. He introduced the men as police investigators, and that they would want to ask me a few questions. I gripped Allison's hand tighter as they came over and sat by me. Good afternoon, Miss Clyde. We won't be long. He looked over at my parents. Could you please give us a moment? Quickly, they and Allison all left the room. He pulled out a pen and paper. Now tell me, what did this man look like? Do you remember? A sudden moment of panic rose in me. I certainly wasn't going to tell them that my brain tricked me into thinking it was Jess, so I simply shook my head. The man raised his eyebrows. Are you sure? I nodded. Well, do you remember anything he said to you? The other man asked. Yes, he knew my name and told me to go to sleep. I shook my head. Do you remember anything that happened last night? I nodded. Will you please tell us everything? I took a deep breath. I was running home from work, but it was raining, so I could hardly see anything. My phone fell out of my pocket, and I tried to look for it when something had been thrown at me. I looked to see it was my phone, then thought for a moment. I really can't remember anything else. I lied. Are you sure? Yeah. He sighed. All right. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I nodded as I watched them both walk out. Never Going to Sleep, Chapter 3. It has almost been 9 days since the accident, and I was rushed to the hospital. Finally, today is the day I'll be able to return home. Is everything ready? My mom asked, carrying out some of my clothes. The constant beeping of the machines were driving me insane. Thank gosh I could go home today. Yeah, I replied, getting off the hospital bed and trying to put my jacket on. Allison came in the room and instantly gasped when she saw me struggling. Here, I'll help you, she quickly said, not even giving me time to answer. Since the accident, she has been blaming herself for what happened. Now she won't get off my skin. After 3 minutes of struggling, I was finally able to put my arm through the sleeve. All right, guys, let's leave this place, my mom said excitedly. Don't need to tell me twice, I said, rushing through the hospital's long corridor. Walk, one of the doctors instructed me, but I ignored him. Who was he to tell me to stay in this place even longer? I ran out into the hospital's large parking lot and gazed around. Something didn't feel right. I should be happy, but a strange feeling overtook me. I stopped. Something was definitely not right. A sudden panic arose in me. Is something wrong? I heard a deep voice ask. I quickly looked around but saw no one. Leah, it said. Breathing heavily, I gazed around for a sight of a living figure. Nothing. What do you want? I asked, still circling around, looking for him. I knew it was him. I told you I'd be back. I told you. I screamed, Leah! Quickly, I opened my eyes and saw Allison sitting next to me. We were in the car and Dad was driving. You fell asleep, my mom said, full of concern. You started screaming. Oh, so it was a dream. I felt sweat drip down my forehead. Quickly, I wiped it off. Moments later, we arrived at home, slowly made my way into the house and straight up to my room. I was exhausted. Allison came up to me. Do you want me to come with you? She asked. No, I'm just gonna go to sleep, I replied. Okay, see you tomorrow. I ignored her and slammed my door shut, falling on my bed, and I closed my eyes. I awoke in a large building. The rain was pouring down, and I somehow was holding a baby. I looked down to see its face. Horror struck me as I saw its mouth was cut into a smile, and its eyelids were burnt off completely. Its skin was white as if blood was purposely drained out of it. My hands shook at the dreadful sight and made me drop the baby. It screamed as it hit the floor, and thunder started banging around the building. No, no, I whispered, this can't be happening. Oh, but it is. I heard a familiar voice come from behind me. I turned around to see it was Allison, but she was holding none other than Jeff's hand in hers. He promised you, she said, slowly walking over to the baby. The baby screamed. Its teeth started to melt away, and its eyes turned to nothing but two empty black holes. Jeff walked over to the baby and looked into its eyes. Go to sleep, he said. No, I screamed, watching. He looked up at Allison and took his knife. She looked shocked. What are you doing? She asked. He grabbed her neck and tried to struggle away from his grip, but she was locked in his arms. He sliced her mouth into a large smile, and she fell on the floor. He raised his knife once again. Wake up, he said, and then he lunged at me, yelling at the top of his lungs. He stabbed my neck. Wake up. I screamed and opened my eyes to see I was back in my room on my bed. Another nightmare, I sighed in relief, as my dad burst through the door with a gun in his hand. Is everything all right? What's wrong? Nothing, Dad, just another nightmare. I breathed awkwardly. Oh, he calmed down a bit. Well, go back to sleep. Sorry for bothering you. I nodded as he closed the door, and I slowly drifted back to sleep. Never going to sleep. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to tell me you're alive, and maybe add it to your favorites. Bye.